Liz and everyone, hello. Uh, Welcome to a FG Eurocast. Tonight is going to be a bit of a special one. For example, apparently the stream is not working fully the way it should be. Who cares? Anyways, today we're going to have somewhat of a special episode. So my co-host is still like in Switzerland, and as you know, they don't have phones and stuff there. So he might be able to join us in half an hour, or he might not be. Which is why tonight we have mostly just one topic, which is the situation in Afghanistan. And later on, if my co-host joins us, we might talk a bit about Belarus. If he doesn't, we're just getting to that topic next week probably, if we remember, which doesn't always happen, as you might know. So, first of all, tonight I have Douglas here as my guest, which it might make it a bit less awkward instead of having just me. So, hello.
Yeah, yeah, like I know you like the sound of your own voice, but
Yeah,
but
yeah, I don't. I really don't.
oh, you don't? Oh, I think your accent is quite good. I think I like here. Which state are you from? Which EU state are you from? Are you from outside the EU?
Obviously, the best state, which is Italy.
Ah, yeah, guys, man, I love, Italy's a really nice place, we got really nice architecture, really nice food. I love Italian food.
So, let's start with wait, no. What the nah, whatever. It doesn't work the way I want it. Wait, can I? Why? I just realized this doesn't make any sense what I'm saying right now. I was trying to fix the thing. Oh, the chat. Okay, now we should have the chat as well, in theory, in the stream. So it's almost like we are professionals, but we are
Yes, we
not.
are very professional. We are the utmost professional.
So let's get to the topic. So the as you have seen the title, it's the Afghanistan fiasco, because I think pretty much everyone can agree that everything about Afghanistan has been a failure. Mm, First of all, obviously, a 20 years old war which ended in what the Taliban took over in just like a week or whatever. Didn't really take long for them, and what was even accomplished, not much, I would say. And would like to start before we go into a bit more details about it. I would like to start from something that I did see, I did, which is a bit. I didn't really like it much coming from Biden. Um, in interviews, he said, "This is the actual quote. We achieved those objectives. That's why we went. We did not go to Afghanistan to a nation build, and it's the right and responsibility of the Afghan people alone to decide the future and how they want to run the country." Which, at face value, it might even sound somewhat nice, like it should be up to them. But you did go there and wage war for 20 years and bomb the shit out of that country. You can't say that you didn't go there to nation build. If you invade a country, you need to nation build to some degree. I mean, let's say, just let's talk about World War II for a sec here. When Germany was defeated, when Japan was defeated, there was nation building there. It's not like uh, when the Germans were defeated, they said, "Okay, we won. Now we go away," and Germany starts having the Nazis get back on track again. That's not how it worked there, right? They made a new constitution. They made a new army and stuff. Which, by the way, I'm not saying that obviously in Afghanistan it has been done to some degree, something along those lines, but the the idea that you can go to a country, wage war, destroy everything as in institutions and everything else, and just leave and say, okay, I mean, that doesn't sound like a great plan. If your objective is to, let's say, fix the country, I know you don't really fix a country by waging war, but if the idea is to have a more, I don't know, mm, peaceful country. I don't know what the best objective would be there. But if you want to have a new Germany or a new Japan, you can't just say we did go there to wage war a bit and have them not attack U.S. soil again, but we didn't go to build a new country because you have to. If you don't go there with that objective, how are you even supposed to win? Like, what's even uh, the objective there? Like, how do you even win the war if you don't even want to build a new state that can work without you in there? And I mean, they obviously failed because the US never really wanted to do that too much. And I mean, it took like not that long for them to just leave and the Taliban's, to take over. And I don't know. Let me. What do you think about it, Douglas? I know
I,
I've
I,
talked a bit too much.
I think that the Afghanistan war has shown a flaw in European, foreign policy and European policy in general. In the fact that Europe is unable, or sorry, when I say unable, I mean Brussels is unable to project power outside of its immediate borders. So, for instance, because here's the thing, like my European friends, my non-European friends, the EU is in a dangerous neighborhood. You know, um, like, to our east we have, the Russian bear. To our southeast, we have, Turkey. To the north we have, at northern Africa, which is, which is either which either has, countries in the middle of a civil war, or, civil strife. And Afghanistan to me is just another example of where Europe is unable to project power. It's um essentially when in Afghanistan it was when the Americans say so, it happens. It's not like, what do you think, Europe? What do you think? And the main reason for that is, simply put, Europe militarily is quite weak, really, and and geopolitically is quite weak. Mainly because, by the way, I'm probably blabbing on here, so please feel free to interrupt me.
Yeah, don't worry.
But um, because what Europe has done is it's taken, I believe, a very much an isolationist approach when it comes to military power and when it comes to diplomatic power, and it's left Europe very vulnerable. It's left Europe very, very vulnerable because um, we can't, like, let me put it this way: we have no boots on the ground in Ukraine. Okay, we have no boots on the ground in, and we had no boots on the ground in Libya. We had, absolutely no boots on the ground in Syria when that war was going on. And these are all wars that are happening near us. If these wars were happening, in like Southern America, like, the US would have an infinite amount of, boots on the ground. Yes, when these wars happen in Europe's backyards, we don't have any boots on the ground. We don't have any say in what's happening, and these are our neighbors. It's not like it's halfway across the world.
So we have a new guest here as
Yeah,
well.
thank you.
Hello, Meganet.
Hello,
So
welcome.
uh, tell us
Yeah,
your point of view
I
here.
would like to say that I think Europe is kind of limited in its philosophy also because we are like a union of peace, and if we want to project power, we first have want to do it. So I think a lot of member states, their state policy is not to interfere with other countries. Like I'm thinking about like Austria, for example, they're not even a NATO member, and they cannot like just project their power onto other states. It's like kind of impossible for them. And also, like, I'm from Germany, so like we don't think highly of our troops. It's just like that. Like a lot of people I know serve there, and they say, yeah, it's okay, but like we don't like the German public doesn't really want to get its troops on the ground in Libya, as you just said, or get the troops on the ground in Ukraine, as you just said. Um, I think the European public, um, via the European Union, doesn't really want to get active in these wars and fight wars, like for example in Ukraine. Um, and I think also the setup, the European Union, the spirit of the European Union is not one of fighting wars like in Afghanistan or Ukraine or Libya, even at its borders. Um, I think that's the main problem, that we are not set up to do this. The founding spirit of the European Union was not to fight wars; it was to economically integrate, to get peace and stabilization in Europe. So war's just not one of the factors which are playing a role here.
Well, to be fair, uh, the Roman Empire waged war because it was always a defensive war to have peace. So we could do that, I guess.
Yeah, but it's not really a defensive war if we get
Yeah,
troops on the ground in Ukraine.
yeah, I know. But
It's
the thing is that the
I mean, the European Union has some kind of statute that says that the member countries should help each other to defend,
yeah, I mean, if
but it's really loosely.
if a European country gets attacked, as in someone declares war on a European country, everyone else, in theory, should help. The thing is, as any alliance, you don't know how effective the actual alliance is until you test it. In theory, to some degree, it's even stronger than NATO's Article 5. Like in theory, it says that you should help in all capacities, which is in theory, depending on how you read it, you could say that it's even more. But the thing is, at the end of the day, it has never been tested. Neither NATO, at least not
No,
in
NATO
that
was
way.
tested. It was tested.
Well, I mean,
9/11 was a Treaty 5 case.
yes. So the thing is, there's the when it comes to Iraq, there was like the coalition of willings, kinda the same thing in Afghanistan, not to the same degree. And when it comes to Europe, the closest we had was when France used our treaty, the European treaty, which was when they had their terror attacks, and they got some help from Europe in order to increase mostly the presence in Africa because most of the people were coming from there. Like terrorism there ended up arriving to Europe, which
Yeah,
and
if
if France, so France was like divided between protecting France and protecting Africa from terrorism, and since they couldn't do both after the terror attacks, they needed some help from Europe, and they did get some help. But the thing is that it was, I mean, it's different when it's different when it's like a country that wages war against you instead of terrorism or whatever, because it's a
yeah,
lot
that's
different, you
the
know.
it
that's the point I
the
wanted to just want to make sure that we understand that these like NATO Article 5, I think it was Article 39 in the treaties of the European Union, these kinds of treaties were made for like interstate conflict and not for conflict between states and like transnational organization like terrorists.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I mean, they were made back in days when I mean, especially both
there was
NATO
no
and the Euro.
transnational terrorists.
I mean, the idea mostly was to defend against Russia.
Yeah,
the,
Uh,
the
exactly.
the problem is like here's the other issue fundamentally. Europe just does not project soft power like whatsoever. It projects like a minuscule amount of soft power.
Wait, you mean
You
hard
know,
power, not soft?
like no, both soft and like hard power. Like for instance, um, and like and like and Europe has proved that when it uses its soft power effectively, it can be devastating to a country's economy. Look at Russia. After they annexed Ukraine, sorry, not actually Ukraine, sorry, annexed Crimea. Um, Europe put lots of sanctions on Russian goods, on Russian businessmen, on top officials, and it completely crippled the Russian economy. Like today the Russian economy is basically wholly dependent on its oil exports and its mineral exports, and and even and it and again, for instance, with recently in Belarus, I think that Europe was severely lacking in its soft power, simply because
Well, it's not like the thing is, it's not as much as it lacks soft power as much as it doesn't use it. I mean,
yeah, like
because
I guess that's the right way to put it.
it's
Like
not
Europe,
like we
like let me
don't
put it this
have
way, Europe.
things that we can do. It's more like, obviously the biggest issue is that when it comes to foreign policy, we have the need for a unanimous vote instead of having a qualified majority, which means one country can easily block the whole union from having sanctions or whatever, and obviously it's a lot harder to do stuff. I mean, there's always going to be at least one country that is against it for whatever reason, if economic, cultural, whatever, and that can limit the effectiveness of European soft power. But the thing is, when Europe is united, the few times when it can be united, it has quite a lot of soft power. Obviously, if you have some hard power as well, you can use it to increase your soft power, but that's something we don't really have right now. Like we have the carrot, we have the economic stick, let's say, but we don't have the other stick, which makes the words more heavy, let's say that way. So
Yeah,
like
the
like the
project.
thing is, oh sorry, like you like let me I'll say this one thing. I'll let you talk. Europe is like a really buff guy that doesn't want to flex its muscles, and everyone else is flexing their muscles. Like that's the best way I can put it, basically.
yeah,
I would like to support that. I would like to add, like with Britain leaving the Union, we are losing like in hard power. We are losing a aircraft carrier. Those are used to project power, like mainly by the United States.
uh,
Like if Europe wants to project power, like they're using it to like driving through like international waters, like Taiwan Strait or Persian Gulf.
yeah. But
Like
the
that's what
thing
I
is, I don't
like.
think,
If
to be honest, I don't think that one British air carrier, which isn't even that great of a carrier, it, I don't think that really that changes much in the. It's a really small thing when it comes
yeah,
to
sure.
everything else. And
But if we are talking about projecting hard power, we are talking about military equipment that the
yeah,
member
but
states
the thing
have.
is, when it comes to Europe, most of our interests aren't even on. We don't really need that much boats. It's Russia, it's Ukraine, it's Belarus, it's in the east. It's like we don't need a carrier there. We need airports. So I understand what you mean, and to some degree, yes. But if the objective, I mean, right now the navy for the EU mostly it's about Turkey, but Turkey has a quite a not much of a navy. I mean, just Italy by itself has a better navy than Turkey. If you put Italy and France together, Turkey doesn't have a navy. It's better if it keeps it in the harbor instead of having go around. So that's like our biggest rival when it comes to the navy. Other than that, it's mostly like to protect trade routes and stuff. So I don't necessarily think that Britain is that, at least when it comes to the carriers. If we are talking about other stuff, sure, it's not like the UK has a terrible army. They are fine. Obviously, a relatively big nation when it comes to the EU. So obviously there is some loss there. But I don't really think that, like, let's say this way, if you have the choice, which we don't yet have, but let's say if you have the choice between having more of a alliance of states, which is what we have right now, with the UK in it, or I can choose to have not the UK, but have everyone else be more united, as in a single line of command, or having just one tank, for example. That's what PESCO is supposed to do. I think it's a lot better to have more efficiency and more, instead of just having Brits as well. At least that's. I mean, just look at even in World War II. It's one of the reasons why the Germans were so effective against the French. France wasn't really that well. It wasn't that great when it came to its organization. It had a lot of people trying uh, exert their own power, so it wasn't that great when it came to its leaders. Meanwhile, Germany, for whatever reasons, quite a few, it was a lot more streamlined, and that's why they were able to be successful. It's not like, I know, like there is the whole meme of the marginal line not working. It actually worked quite well, better than it was supposed to. When it comes to the tanks, France had some tanks which were a lot better than the German ones, because when you think of Germany and tanks, you think like the Panzer, the Tiger, whatever. Back then it was like the German tanks were nothing. They were like quite ordinary. They weren't the best tanks or whatever. Actually, were, and they didn't even have that many. Like most of its troops, like they had even horses, still used horses. So it's not like it was this so better quality of troops. It was just more about tactics. And just going back, I don't think it's about having the UK in the EU, which, I mean, we don't have them anymore, but just saying, I don't think it's as much about the quantity, but as much about having a more streamlined approach. And I mean, it's not like we don't already have a lot of quantity. If you just look at the numbers, both in manpower, number of tanks, number of planes, ships, whatever, if you combine everything the member states have in the EU, it's like the second biggest army in the world, probably. On some things, it's even bigger than the US. Something a bit smaller. It's not like it's that small.
Yeah, but
I'm afraid I have to leave, but it's been really nice talking to everyone.
Oh,
And,
yeah, thank you.
it's been
yeah,
nice
sorry.
having you here. So,
Alright.
by the way, anyone else that wants to join, feel free to. And
Yeah, that's what you just
go
said.
on.
Like we have like maybe the second biggest army in the world. I'm just not sure in the numbers right now. But we are not able to like ready the forces and put them in the field, just as you said, because all 27 parliaments or 28, whatever, have to vote for their own armies to be put into position. So yeah, maybe first streamlining and efficiency should be good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, hopefully, the EU army will be. I mean, I think at some point we will get there. It's not because of some like. It's not as much of a like an idealistic thing. It's not like because it's like something I would like to see, even if it is something I would like to see. But it's simply because it's like the pragmatic thing to do. It's not even just the pragmatic. It's the natural evolution of things.
I think also there might be a double thing here between the European Union and the NATO, and also the European Economic Zone, not not that heavy, but like if you organize some defense through European Union and then another defense through NATO, like if you have Russia like as an like threat, there might be some doubling of like lines of command. So
Well, I mean, not necessarily. Like I know when it comes to this issue, there are people like split on what to do about NATO. Uh, right now, everyone can agree that NATO is mostly something that the US has, where everyone does what the US says, which it kind of makes sense too. I mean, they are the top dog there, so it makes sense. But in the future, this, let's say in a relatively far future, it's not like it's going to happen tomorrow or anything, but if the EU becomes more federal and it has one European army with just one foreign minister and just one vote, like let's say just the European Parliament has to vote on it, and if they say yes, we go to war. We don't have to go through each member state. Let's say if when we get to that point, it's not. I don't think NATO would be too much of an issue. It's not going to be another step, but it's more going to be like there's the EU command, there's the American one, because mostly NATO it's EU and the US. It's not like would I guess like some countries in the Balkan which are not in the EU yet, but yeah, who cares? So it's going mostly to be like an alliance between the EU and the US. So I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue at that point. Although obviously it's going to take quite a while, like a really, really long while. Although Yeah,
You
go
just
on.
talked about the NATO command chain, which is obviously dominated by the US, because it was like from the US who wanted to protect Europe in the Cold War, and the commander, like the Supreme Allied Commander Europe, it's always an American, of course, like you said.
But I mean, the
Yeah.
thing, obviously, if you go on NATO and like on the website, if you look at everything in it, it has changed a bit from obviously from the way it started, uh, and it's not written as this is the U.S. alliance where you become its minion, but obviously, uh, if you look
It's,
at the balance of power, obviously the US is going to have more of a say, even if
and yeah,
it's not like by law they are the one that decide everything, but they end up deciding everything because they are the one that's sending the troops and stuff.
yeah, most of the troops, yeah. But like Macron, like just 2, 3 years ago, he said like the NATO is like dead, or something in this direction. But like you can see like with countries like North Macedonia, like willing to join NATO and like wanting to join NATO to gain its protection. I think it still has relevance today.
Ma-
And
the thing is, Macron said that because on one hand you have the French hate the Americans mostly. I mean, it's not like they hate them, but they don't want to be their underlings, let's say.
nobody wants the underlings of to be the underlings of the US.
Well, I mean, depends, not really. Some countries really like that. It's easier. You just have the US having. They pay for the military, you don't. They do everything. It's not that. Uh, I don't know. Let me think about whatever small country. Like say, I don't know. Is Slovakia in NATO? I think it is in NATO, Slovakia. So let's
Let me
say
check.
Slovakia is in NATO. I think it is, but I'm not completely sure. Let's say it is. Are they okay being in it? I think yes. It's not like they're
Yeah, it's in
paying
NATO. It's in
much.
NATO. Slovakia is part of NATO.
Yes. Okay. So, for example, I'm pretty sure they like being the US minion to some degree. It's not like they have to do much. It's not like they need to send their troops much abroad or whatever. And if Russia attacks them, they have the US protecting them in theory. It's not being a minion of the US doesn't cost too much mostly, which is why quite a few countries are happy to be their minions. And which, by the way, to be honest, most of Europe was happy. The reason why Afghanistan and everything that happened there happened is because, I mean, there are quite a few reasons, obviously, but one of the big ones, Europe didn't want to get involved too much. We still don't. The big difference now is that the US is starting to get isolationist again, as it used to be quite a long time ago by now. And since now there's a power vacuum, there's no one doing the policing of the world, let's say, the world police. And we don't want to do that on one hand. On the other hand, we are outraged when we see some stuff happening. And which is comes back a bit to what you said earlier, which even if we have the military, it's not like we want to deploy troops to Libya or to whatever.
Yeah.
But that's mostly because we could afford to not do that in the past, because we could just have the US go there. And when, as for example in Afghanistan, just send the US or wherever else. Now the US wants to go back towards a more isolationist policy, and we either accept that we need to find a solution to world policing, I guess. Like everyone says that the US going around doing world policing didn't work and doesn't work, and to some degree it's true. It's not like it have worked that well. On the other hand, we get outraged about stuff. We want to do something, we don't know what. So it's not that easy to decide what Europe should even do then. Should we become the new world police? Should we find a new way to be a world police? Should we just say it's their issue and everything that happens outside of Europe we don't care? I think, I mean, it's a bit difficult there, right, to decide.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of unclarity between like between the European countries. Like, what our like this new alliance, like it's fairly new, like maybe like 60 years old. Like, what is its purpose? Okay, so its first purpose was like peace and stability, but now we like have peace and we have stability, and it's growing, like it's getting bigger, and it's like really big, and like now it's already encompasses like most European countries, and
Mhm.
like what is its final purpose? Is its final purpose still just peace and stability and economic integration, or like
I
do we
mean,
set ourselves
the
another
thing
goal?
is, if you say peace and stability, just those two by itself, you can go so far. Let's say peace. If you want peace in Europe, you should. The only way is to have your neighbors to be at peace, because if Belarus is at war, it's not the greatest for you either. Or if in Libya there's a civil war and then people start coming to Europe, you're not having either peace or stability, do you? So even just by saying peace, you might have to, like, sometimes the only way to save peace is by having war, which is not the greatest, to be honest. But it's not like by just pretending that nothing happening, then you can have stability or peace. Same thing. I mean, let's say when it comes to stability, if you want stability in Europe, you need to fix Africa, as in every issue that Africa has, unless you want in 50, 100 years, whatever, the climate crisis to hit Africa really hard, and every issue that Africa is going to have, it's going to get to Europe. So even just saying peace and stability, you pretty much need to fix the world if you want to be, if you need peace and stability. It's not that easy, especially if you want to have liberal values as well, because if you don't care about everyone else, you kinda can do something, but if you want peace, stability, and
Yeah,
human rights, yeah, it
yeah,
starts to become
exactly.
a bit difficult, you know.
Yeah, do the end does the end justify the means? Like, do we want to do the same mistakes projecting power as the US does them, like with war crimes?
I mean, the
Or
thing
like,
is, it's not like the way the US did it is the only way. It's not like there
yeah,
is only one way to wage war, or there's only one way to invade. I don't know. For you can. I mean, there are so many ways you can, for example,
I just
help
like
uh, a part of a country to insurrect and have a civil war if you want. But it's not the best. I mean, the thing is, at the end of the
that's
day,
what the
if there's a
CIA does to
dictator, you
South
need a war.
America.
You're not going to get rid of a dictator without some kind of war. At the very least, an economic one. But that's the easiest, and it doesn't really work too much. I mean, just look at Cuba, just look at North Korea. Sometimes they can just live without trade. And I mean, mostly we don't care. But if we cared, what do you even do? It's not, as you said earlier, yes, we need to decide. And on the other hand, I think we need to even figure out if there's a better way. I hope there is, but it's not easy. I don't really think it's easy, because if it was, the US would have probably done that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
I
Probably
just
nothing
want
is going
to
to happen right
read
now,
out
but
what just want to read out to everybody what at Linux fan 64 was writing into the chat. He was putting up a quote from the Schuman Declaration,
mhm.
1950. So everybody knows the time frame. The pooling of coal and steel production should immediately provide for the setting up of common foundations for economic development as a first step in the Federation of Europe, and will change the destinies of those regions which have long been devoted to the manufacture of munitions of war, of which they have been the most constant victims.
So I mean, this sounds really nice.
Yeah, it does.
Just going a step further though, there is a big reason why coal and steel were the first ones which were decided on. I mean, it's not because of the economic development by itself. I mean, if you want just economic development, there are so many other avenues. But the reason we went with coal and steel is because that's how we wage war. Steel to make guns or whatever, and coal to power your machines. The thing is, if Germany can access steel or coal from France, and France can do the same without having to wage war, why even wage war? I mean, the thing is, that's like
And
the main objective of the EU, right? It's not just it's peace and stability through a pragmatism point of view. It's simply saying it's not just because we don't have war between Germany and France because we have alliances which France can like it's afraid
the
of
reason
Germany
for
or whatever.
wars.
It's it becomes what we did with Europe with the EU is make war unthinkable because it makes no sense. Why any of the reasons you would wage war, which is usually at the end of the day simply resources, there's no need to do that. You already have access to the French resources. Why would you wage war? You're already in the EU. So
Yeah.
that's I think the best way. Like it's the thing is I think they were quite smart, obviously, and it's really interesting to see that they didn't start from whatever else they could have done. They went from steel and coal, which were the main means of war. And yeah, obviously, uh,
Kind of an idealistic dream of Schumann. Yeah, that's of course true.
yeah. I
But
mean, but the thing is, it worked to some degree. It's not like,
yeah,
and the thing
definitely.
is, obviously, we are not a federation yet, but it is a step towards a federation. The EU, every step has been a step towards a federation, and not just because we want that, but because it's. I think it's almost like the natural conclusion. If
Yep.
you have coal and steel and everyone can access it, might as well add other things. Then at some point you need to have. So since
Everything.
the trade deals, like if we are only a single market, then you need someone to decide when something happens, if who's right, who's wrong. So you need a judicial court, a European one. Then you need to, if you have a single market, why make a French law, a German law, and stuff, and then have them try to find a way to have all of those laws work around the EU? Might as well just make them together in the European Parliament. It's not like every step of the way. It has been just every step makes the next step inevitable to some degree. It's just a matter of time and a matter of sometimes political will, but it's every step makes the next one somewhat inevitable, I would say.
Yeah, I think it needs like for political unification or federalization, we need a an external factor to force us to do it. Like I don't think like the political like giving up the complete sovereignty, not just economical sovereignty, um, or like border sovereignty. I think that's not enough to force the give up of political sovereignty. I think there needs to be like an outside uh effect to finally give us the push to do the rest.
I mean,
I think it
we
the,
have.
the
I mean, it is the reason why the EU grows with crisis. Each
yeah,
crisis, the
exactly.
EU grew a lot. Just look at the financial crisis. We had quite a lot of new systems in place when it comes to banking and economics. Then we had COVID now, quite a few differences now with COVID. Um, yeah, I mean, obviously, especially especially if you are younger, it's you might want it to be a bit quicker. It's a bit
And we are
it's a bit hard when you see the U and says, okay, you didn't do that much. Come on, get a move. But
yeah.
obviously, when it comes to something this big, it's always going to take quite a lot of time.
Yeah, like with COVID, first up, every country did its own thing, and then they like relatively quickly started to do it together. Like first with the vaccine orders, and then also with the warning apps, like the alarm apps. So I think that the German one works with like 25 other states or something. It's actually incredible if you think about it that all these countries can cooperate and integrate these highly complex systems in such a short amount of time. Um, and I think the European Union learns every time they encounter a crisis like the financial crisis, like the COVID epidemic, that like they now implement systems so that the next time this hits, or like a similar crisis hits, they have like plans. I hope they make it. Never seen those, but they have like already done stuff, so it's better response, a faster response, a more unified response.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's not like there are quite a few people there that are quite smart enough to know some of the things that need to be done. The thing is, there is a big difference between normal times and crisis times. You can afford to do a lot more in a crisis compared to normal times. Like one of the big things I can think of, let's say, since we are talking about COVID, the idea of working from home. We went from before COVID, no one even knew that was a thing, more or less. Especially in Europe, it's not like I know maybe like in Sweden, Norway, someone did that, sure, but most of the people either didn't know about it or never even thought about that possibility. And then after COVID, we had a lot of people having to work from home, and I know it's going back to people going just to the office, but some people are now going to work a bit from home, a bit from the office, just from home, and that's going to, I think, in the long run, we are going to see some effects. I mean, especially like say, people might not just go to live in a city if they don't have to. Might as well just live outside of a city where it's cheaper and it's better. And if you need to go to the office once per week you go, and the rest of the week you work from home. And that's something that it was impossible to do before a crisis like COVID. You couldn't have everyone start doing that, even if we had a lot of issues. But uh, leaving aside the obvious issues when doing something like that so quickly, it's something that we had to move on that issue quite quickly, and that was only because of COVID. If we didn't have COVID, it would have never happened probably. Same thing when it comes to the EU having a recovery fund, the EU having now a way to make its own money, kinda, because of COVID. Uh, in theory, people now want a way for the EU to have a more unified healthcare, not as much as when it comes to the hospital, whatever, but more like a unified way to answer to something like COVID or whatever else might happen in the future.
Yeah, you were just talking about healthcare. European Union did like these unified cards, all the healthcare providers must provide, which work in the whole European Union. Then I started working on it, but I think also the healthcare systems in the different countries are not as different as, let's say, the US's and the Europeans. But still, there are a lot of funding differences, taxing difference between the healthcare systems between like Germany and United Kingdom or France even. It'd be really hard to uh, to do a system together so the funding works like federally because everybody wants to do something different. One state is more social democratic, the other one is more like liberal. Um, this will be like a huge issue between the countries. But you also see that the countries even work together without these systems in place. So, for example, Germany picked up a lot of COVID patients from its surrounding states when those hospitals were full. So they're working together, but it's not just like one unified, as you said.
Yeah. So I think we went a bit off topic. So let's
Yeah,
get back a
yeah, we
bit
did.
towards what happened in Afghanistan. So obviously the EU can't do much right now. We can, I mean, you see Angela Merkel and other people being a bit upset about the situation. And I mean, yes, we could. The thing is, on one hand, I think it could have been done better. At least if the US had to leave, uh, I would have liked it to not be the way it has been as of now. I mean, people climbing on a plane and falling and dying because they're trying to flee. It's not the best look, and honestly, it's a bit. I don't know. On one hand, it would have been quite better if it was a more orderly way to live. On the other hand, I understand that maybe it's impossible because obviously if your enemy knows that you are leaving, it's not like they're going to just stay there waiting for you to leave. Although, I mean, the thing is, maybe they might have. I'm quite sure. I mean, the U.S. has said so. I don't know which of its. I don't know if it was Biden or someone else, but still, they did say that they didn't expect the Taliban to take over that quickly. So they expected they expected to live a bit more orderly. Didn't really happen much. And
My
the thing is, I don't know. On one hand, I would say that I would think it's possible to make it a bit not that bad. On the other hand, maybe it's not. I mean, it's not like I'm a military general, whatever. Maybe it's simply impossible. If you, I mean, it's not like, for example, I know that the Afghans, the troops there, they knew that US was leaving when everyone else knew it. Like when they told that to the world. It's not like they knew it earlier, so they had not much time to do anything to prepare themselves, for example. But on the other hand, I understand that if you say that 1 month prior, it's going to leak and your enemy is going to know it. So I don't know. It's probably more complicated than we would think. I mean, I would hope that something like the US, which sure it has its issues, but I would imagine it's somewhat competent as an army. If they couldn't do it as orderly as we would have liked it to be, maybe it wasn't as easy or possible. But on the other hand, you get to wonder, like, is it that hard? I guess.
Yeah, I think like how do you get to this like misguiding thing that they say, yeah, it would take them like at least 1 month or something to take over the country when we leave, but then it's like 2 days. Was it 2 days or 3 days? And they had everything back. It's like who is at fault? They're just incompetent, or are they actually trying to misguide us here? So they have maybe they have the best generals in the world. I don't know, but they have pretty good generals, I believe. I assume, I hope so. And if those generals can't make the call and say, yeah, those troops are going to take over in 2 days, they would take a month. I think there are some wrong people at the wrong place there. But if you maybe want to compare the situation we had in Vietnam about 50 years ago with the one we had now. So the US intervened, and then they lost the war and had to go. And that was in April 30th, 1975. But they uh, they reinitiated ties between Vietnam like 20 years later in 1995. So maybe we just need some time to um, get in touch with the new Taliban regime. Um, but they say they're not going to impose the
Yeah.
all the Sharia laws as much as but we don't know
So,
how it's going to.
fun fact. I wasn't sure which title to use tonight. I went with the Afghanistan Fiasco mostly because I think it's a better title probably, but I did want to call it Progressive Talibans. It's never going to happen. I mean, we already know that there have been some protests against them, and they have used lethal force. And I mean, they want to use Sharia law. It's not like women are going to have rights there. I mean, even before the Taliban were there in Afghanistan, women didn't have that many rights. The Afghans are not
Yeah,
going to be more progressive than that. It's not going to
yeah.
be. I mean, the
I think they have
idea.
to say all this stuff because they want to join the United Nations, like
Yeah. So
someday.
the
So they
thing
have to sign the
is,
charter.
yeah, the thing is they did say that it was going to be like a different Taliban. It's been so many years. They're a bit different, like a more progressive way, but still on. I mean, they said it was going to be like a Sharia, but different. The thing is, it didn't take long for them to just show that yeah, the Taliban are still the Taliban. So like, obviously they still are the Taliban. If you have protests and you go there and shoot people and kill them, it's not like you're telling the world that you are anything but what we already knew. So I mean, that whole part of like, I understand why they would do that. I don't really understand why. Looks like I don't know if they're falling for it or they're more like hoping, maybe like, yeah, we are going away, but it's not the same Taliban, so it's a bit better. Like some hope that it's better than it is. But let's be honest, they are the same people that were there. They're terrorists. They're not people. If tomorrow we have a terror attack in Rome or in Paris or Madrid, wherever, they're going to be the first ones to enjoy that. It's not like they're against that. So they're not progressive Talibans. There's no
Yeah, that's
such
the
thing.
question. Like, I think they have a lot of fundamentalist basis with the Sharia law and everything else. But I think they also have to have like a central government at some point or another. And the question is, what does the central government want to achieve? Does it want to achieve trading with China a lot with the copper they have? Does it want to achieve a lot of economic growth by trading with other nations?
No.
Then they must behave in a certain way. And if they don't, there
No.
might be economic repercussions.
The thing
So
is,
like,
they don't. The main thing is, it is a dictatorship at the end of the day, right?
yeah,
In a dictatorship,
maybe a collective dictatorship. Like,
they have their supreme leaders, and it is a dictatorship. As any dictatorship, obviously, you have the main guy, but it's not like the main guy is doing everything. That there are obviously other center of powers, like the generals and whatever, and it's mostly the same there as well. And what are their objectives going to be? I think it's quite obviously going to be just them getting richer and not care too much. And I don't think they're going to be the social like progressives that say, oh, we want to fix Afghanistan, we want everyone to have a good job. It's not that. They want Sharia law. They want to rule the country however they want. Probably they're still going to produce opium and stuff, just sell drugs. And I mean, you know what? I wonder if they're
that's
going to be the first country that
that's the
makes drugs as in like officially. That would be
that's the
interesting,
question.
I
Do they
guess.
want to like grow economically? They already have the huge drug trafficking, which just prints money for them. But do they also want to like get bigger and grow, like with mining and maybe even manufacturing? Like, we don't know what China is up to. And they want to build the Belt and Road Initiative through Afghanistan, so they need to have a stable zone there for trains or the freight moving through there. Um, what is their goal? We don't know yet. We can just assume at the moment. But I think if they want to integrate into the capitalist system, they said they don't want to, but inevitably they're probably going to do so. Um, I'm not seeing them going socialist anytime soon. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, that's the question. What's their goal? What are they going to do? I think they're going to integrate by trading with China a lot, like a little union there,
no,
trade.
the
Union.
thing is, we don't know yet, but I don't think it's going to be much different from I don't know, Saudi Arabia, for example. I think that's going to be probably the best example. It's going to be a shit show, a shitty country where Sharia law is the law, and there's going to be a supreme leader, which they already have. They have like supreme commander or whatever, and there are going to be some people that are the richer ones. Probably, I do think that it is quite likely that the way for them to grow is simply more drugs. Just, I mean, the country is yours. No one is going to stop you. The whole country can become drugs if they want to. So I do that, I
Yeah.
guess. And I mean, the thing is, it's not even that much of a bad plan because they can. I'm not sure how it would go in the international trade, but I mean, they've already made a lot of money. They know how to sell drugs to the West and
Definitely.
whatever. So might as well just do that and get richer by themselves. It's not like you don't have to think. Like I understand the idea of thinking of Afghanistan as a country, but it's almost has never, to some degree, it has never been a country. It's uh, it's a group of tribes. It has never been like a nation state.
Yeah, there's
It's
also great ethnic divide between the Pashto and the other ethnicities there.
and you have to. I mean, for sure, they're going to have issues with. I do expect some degree of civil war to be there, like the same way the Taliban's were always in the mountains or whatever. I think it's going to be the same thing as in other Afghans that don't want Taliban rule. Because as you said earlier as well, there's a lot of different tribes, different ethnicities. Uh, it's not like everyone is going to like the Taliban rule. Quite the opposite. There's going to be always people that don't want it. And Afghanistan is the best place on earth if you want to have an asymmetrical warfare. So the Taliban are going to be the new US, and the rebels are going to be the new Taliban. So I guess. So
Yeah, it might be. I think also Pakistan is going to play a huge role because the Pashto ethnicity is also, like, I think 2/3 is in Pakistan and the other third is like about across the border.
yeah, I mean
So I think
Pakistan is the main reason why having such a symmetrical warfare in Afghanistan is so easy. They have a border which is, for the longest time, it has not even been. They didn't even check the border. Now it's somewhat checked, but there are so many ways for people to go from Pakistan to Afghanistan. And as we said earlier, those are not real countries, as in. The thing is, in Europe, we have borders mostly along the lines of ethnicity because we had wars to do that. Not the greatest idea, but sure. Anyways, there, those lines were just drawn by us when we finished with our imperialism. We just draw the borders. It's not like just because we say Afghanistan and Pakistan, they are two different countries. They're not. It's like saying Germany and Austria. Sure, they're different countries, I guess, but they still speak the same language, for example. And in Pakistan, not everyone is the same as Afghanistan. Like there are different ethnicities, and the Pashtun, as you said earlier, they are there. They're in Pakistan, and they go to Afghanistan. So it's always a flow of people from there. So it's impossible to rule Afghanistan. It's never going to be easy to rule, especially in a place like that, the center of power, like Kabul. You can't easily control a small town on the mountains on some place. So it's going to have like rebels there. I don't think it's going to ever be stable that much.
yeah, I think also the concept of a nation state, like we have it here in Europe, like which emerged like in the 1830s, just doesn't exist there because first the borders were drawn just like by the like imperialist colonialists like for us. So the borders are like basically artificial for them. Like they have like no reason to be there at all if you look at the ethnicity maps. Um, yeah, and like the concept like of a nation state so cannot arise because these tribes are like different,
I
like
mean, to be
different
fair,
languages and everything. Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that it's not like you need to make. Uh, so let me put it this way: having nations drawn along the lines of ethnicity, it's not really the best way to make a nation. It's not like the best nation is the one where you draw ethnicity lines, because honestly, it's not like you don't want more than one ethnicity in your country. I mean, just look. In theory, the European Union, quite a few ethnicities in there, works fine. The issue is that it's harder. It's a lot harder to make a country work if there's more than one ethnicity. You need solid legal pillars. You need to have like a constitution that works a lot better, like quite a lot of liberal values. It's a lot harder to make a lot of ethnicities work together. So
And you also still need to have to feed the people. give them material necessities they need so they don't like revolt. Like, so like liberal values and human rights are like I like them, but like if you don't have the material necessities like food and like a house, like you're still going to start a revolution even if you have a democracy. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as the chief said in the chat, yeah, it's Afghanistan. Even if you leave aside the matter of ethnicities, it's not a country as in it's simply tribes. Um, if what happens in Kabul, no one cares in the valley up like far from Kabul on like on a mountain or whatever. The small village doesn't really care. They have different people ruling there. Maybe there's someone with an AK. He rules there. So or whatever it is. It's not there. Before the US went there, there were no roads pretty much at all, and even now there's not that many roads. Even if you want to uh, control the country, it's pretty much impossible. Which is why the US failed at the end of the day. Like they got Kabul, sure, doesn't really matter. It's not like if you invade France and you get Paris, you have you pretty much have France. If
I
you have
don't think that's a
Paris.
good example. I think that's a good example because France is very centralized for like about 250,
Yeah,
300 years, maybe even more.
yeah. I mean, the thing is, I'm saying that in France, if you take Paris, you have all of France
Sorry,
because
I misunderstood.
it's so centralized. Everything is connected to Paris. Meanwhile, in Afghanistan, it's the complete opposite. You have tribes that don't care about one another. They don't care one for the other. They are all separate, and they are not connected. So it becomes pretty much impossible to just uh, conquer it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the British Empire couldn't, the USSR couldn't, and now the USA couldn't. Yeah, it's exactly. It's as Virus said, it's the graveyard of empires for a reason. And I mean,
Yeah, you can control some states like Kunduz, Mashhad Sharif, Kabul, but that's like that doesn't lead to anywhere.
so yeah, I think it was conquering Afghanistan the way the US went about it. It was impossible from the start, to be honest.
It
Uh,
was the same they tried in Vietnam and they also failed. Asymmetrical warfare, you can't win that.
the thing is, I think Vietnam was a different matter because at the end of the day, it was like the South and the North. Yes, it was a symmetrical warfare, but there was like it was a bit different there. I think the thing with Afghanistan is the only way for the US to win, I think, uh, in something like in Afghanistan is after they got Kabul, they would have had to consolidate their forces there and literally create a new state. And then go from there. Literally make a new state within Afghanistan and have that state grow.
Yeah, they tried. Yeah, but they
Instead
failed.
of like almost like consider Afghanistan as like the steps or whatever. It's like land with no one in there, let's say, kinda, and you have your own state, and you now need to uh, expand. Which obviously that something like that takes a long time. It means building infrastructure slowly by having the military there to protect it, have like a border pretty much. It's quite impossible pretty much, I guess. And it's not like you can be sure that the people inside your mini state are all with you. It's not like that it's going to be that hard for Taliban to infiltrate. So even I think that's probably the only way, but it would be still really, really hard. But if you don't even do that, it was simply a matter of. It's not like if the US stayed there 10 more years or 20 more years, nothing would have changed. It would have been the same thing. If they kept doing what they've been doing in the last 20 years. So the thing is, at this point, just the way they left. We would have liked a better way for them to live, but as we discussed earlier, we don't know if that was even possible, I guess. Like, obviously, we know some things that have been said publicly, but it's not like we know everything. We don't know if there were some plans that went according to plan. Like, they said that Taliban's it would have taken there longer, but maybe they did know that it was not going to last that long, but it
They
was
lied to
part
us.
of. I mean, the thing is, when it comes to military operations, it's not like you don't necessarily go about saying everything before, at least. Maybe after, but you can't really say everything until the operation is over, you know? I mean, there is some element of intelligence you need to keep for yourself. So we can't know everything for sure. So on one hand, we have that. On one hand, like you said earlier, probably the US has great generals. I don't think they necessarily have like bad generals or whatever, but maybe the generals said something, but it's not like they are the ones that take the ultimate decision at the end of the day. Maybe they said, look, it takes this amount of time, but Biden for some reason said we need to do something else because the politics of our country say that we need to go earlier, and they did that. Like, we can't know everything for sure yet. We don't know if it was a matter of them deciding to go earlier, if they couldn't do it, if we can't really know much yet. What we know is that it would have been quite better if we didn't have people dying there that way. And I mean, it's still an issue there. It's not like it's ended. It's going to take a while before everyone is evacuated, at least when it comes to the troops and those that have collaborated. And then you have the issue of what do we even do with people that want to leave the country? Do we even allow, I mean, it's not allow, but do we even help them to become refugees, as in leave the country? Where do we even go? Which was one of the neighboring countries, I don't know which one was, they already said they got enough refugees and they don't want anymore because they got their quota. So even that is going to be a big issue. We don't really know how it's going to end there. It might have
Yeah.
been Uzbekistan, yeah, I'm not sure though.
Yeah, I'm really excited for those classified documents. We're going to become public in like 20 years or something.
Yeah, probably in quite a few years we're going to know more. You can't really know, and especially when stuff happens, while it happens, you can't really know everything.
Yeah.
And right now, the only thing we can do is hope for the situation to get a bit better, at least for the people trying to flee, because I don't think we can hope for much more than that.
The situation is very chaotic right now, but there was a petition in the German parliament 2 months ago to retreat the people who helped the German military, but it was rejected by the ruling parties, which is shame actually, because those
So,
people helped us and now we're leaving them there.
speaking
Like we're
about that,
trying to fly them out.
I've
Like
I've
the
seen.
retreat was planned for like 6 months something. I think you could have started earlier to retreat
Could you
in
though?
those.
The thing is, yes and no. The thing is, this is the part where I don't know, which I mean, I can't. It's not something I can really know. But can you do it slowly? Can you just say we're getting people out, let's say 10 per week or whatever, or you need to do them everyone at the same time? Because I would imagine probably you need to do everyone at the same time. It's probably the only way, because if you start evacuating some of them slowly, and it's not like the Taliban's probably, they already have some kind of list, they already know some of the people that have helped and stuff. If you start doing it slowly, then they start going for them still there. So the only way to prevent that would be to have everyone go at the same time. I would imagine. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But if that's the case, then even if you can have 6 months to prepare the evocation, but you have just, I don't know, 3 days, a week to actually execute it instead of having 6 months to execute it, you know?
Yeah, but I think in Germany's case, they had no evacuation plans, and actually they just like botched some air bridge to Tashkent, and it seemed like from the outside, like very, very not planned, just from what I've heard. So,
Eh,
and
It,
of course, it's a very difficult military operation, retreating from these places. Um, yeah. So, and I probably couldn't have done it better.
I mean,
Um,
and obviously you are dealing with civilians as well. You are evocating civilians, so it's not that easy, I would imagine. But yeah, we, the thing is, we can make some assumptions, like we can try to, but obviously we are not experts when it comes to how you evacuate civilians from a war zone. Pretty much, so many. I don't think we have the knowledge to be able to do that. But at least I saw a map a few days ago, I think, or maybe yes, I don't remember. It was like a color-coded map of European countries and how many refugees from Afghanistan either they already took or pledged to take. I don't remember. I think it's just the number they pledged to take. And Germany was far above everyone else, like an order of magnitude over. So at least on that side.
And also they're preparing for more. I actually like just 3 days ago I returned from vacation with plane to Frankfurt Airport, and they like immediately as you stepped out of the plane, there were like a policeman standing there checking everybody's passport that actually you exist, and if you didn't exist, you could have applied for asylum. Um, like they're preparing for a new wave of refugees from Afghanistan and the region.
Mhm.
You can actually see that if you're there. So they're planning. We have to see how it goes out.
So I think we have mostly exhausted this topic, at least for this week. Probably we might talk about it next week as well. So since my co-host Nor is not here, we are not going to talk about Belarus tonight. So we are going to keep it for next week probably, if we remember. I mean, there's quite a lot to talk about there, so it's going to be interesting. But before we go, I'd like to. So, on the topic list, I have good news from Italy because I think it's. Since this one was a bit of a depressing topic, I wanted to end it on somewhat of a positive note. Some of you might remember, maybe not. In Italy, we had signatures, like a campaign to get signatures to have a referendum about euthanasia. So the thing is, this week that campaign reached 500,000 signatures, which is the minimum amount needed to have a referendum. The deadline was, I think, the 30th of September. They needed to get those signatures by that date. The campaign is still going. The idea is to have more, like to reach 700 or whatever, because probably among those there's going to be some that can't be validated, some might have issues. So just to make sure the campaign is still going, but in theory we already reached the goal. So I imagine we are going to get the referendum. So next year, Italy is going to have a referendum about the um, about euthanasia. So, I mean, if we get the referendum, then it's not like you have done it. That's just the first step. You start the referendum, then you need to actually win it, which is not going to be that easy. But I think it's I don't know. I think it's a bit uplifting to see that we managed to at least have those signatures, because as you might imagine, most of the people that signed are on the younger side. This is a bit of more of a progressive kind of thing, so it's one of those rare instances, I guess, where young people actually went out and signed, and hopefully next year we're going to get, we're even going to win the referendum. But either way, I think as of now, this is a small, relatively small, but quite good win. And on that positive note there, I guess we say hello, goodbye, till next week on FG Eurocast. You can find us both on Twitch and here on Discord. You're going to find tomorrow probably, or even earlier, the VODs on YouTube. And next week, my co-host Nor is going to be back, for sure, probably. Okay, people, bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, bye-bye.